Hey guys, Stephen here back with another video as ever because tomorrow there's another game of football. They just keep happening and happening and happening because we're so goddamn good at football these days that we're in every competition and playing every game ever for the rest of the forever, for time, ever. Now, Manchester City have got Spurs tomorrow in the Champions League quarterfinals after another very successful weekend. We're through to the FA Cup final, but tomorrow there's no rest for the wicked. We're back in the games. We're back in the thick and fast world of Manchester City Football Club, and we've got a huge game tomorrow. So we're going to look at that game too. We're going to look at all the previews, the team news, look at Spurs, talk about their stadium, all that kind of stuff. As ever, though, I want to say thank you to my latest patron, Eric Nixon. Eric, you're an absolute hero. A $10 pledge as well. Eric, thank you very much. If you want to get involved, patreon.com/Esteemed Company. Eric, if you're listening, make sure you let me know your Q&A questions over on the private message on Patreon. Thank you very much. As ever, if you want to get involved, patreon.com/Esteemed Company. If not, just keep watching these videos and I'll appreciate you all the same. But let's go on to this game though. Let's look at the overview of this game in general because it's a game like tinged with stories at the moment because obviously it's two English teams in the Champions League quarterfinals. Manchester City have already booked their place in one final, one competition. We're currently doing pretty well in the Premier League race. Obviously Liverpool are top at the moment, but we could be top if we win our game in hand. And this is the kind of like the one thing, the forbidden fruit, the one thing we haven't had yet. You know, this is the competition that's probably at top of the list of the board. Even if it's not mine personally, the board probably want this more than ever. Now, this is the first time City and Spurs have ever played in the European stage, and is what is the 157th meeting between all teams in all competitions. And we've won 11 of our last 16 matches against Spurs, drawing 1 and losing 4 as well. With all those meetings coming in the Premier League, and we've won the last 3 in a row against them. So the omens are pretty good. We tend to these days have Spurs' number. No guarantees, of course, but we do tend to have their number. Obviously, as well, there's the whole talk around Spurs' brand new, glorious new stadium, the 62,000 capacity one. They were very good the other day, getting the first victory there. And can this actually have an impact on the result of the game? We'll go into that later, but that's essentially the main talking point here because De Bruyne was very vocal about that. But anyway, on to the actual team news. Apparently, Kyle Walker is fit after probably a very severe bollocking from Guardiola, if we're being honest. He was probably more at risk of being injured from Guardiola's hairdryer treatment than he was actually the niggle he got on the pitch. And Mendy came through training as well, fine. So he's been training today on the pitch. Also, Paveda travelled with the team, which is interesting. I don't think he'll be involved. Maybe he's just there to make up the numbers. But that's an interesting little precautionary tale there anyway. But Mendy, yeah, Walker, both fit. Other than that, the big news is that Sergio Aguero, yes, our absolute talisman, could be back in the squad. Sergio back for a game like this. A man who loves scoring against Spurs. Please, that would be really, really nice, wouldn't it? He's been training. He's back in full fitness now, allegedly. I don't know if he'll start or not, but he's definitely back and he'll be on the bench at very, very least, which leads me nicely onto the next bit of the video. The lineup, my predicted lineup. Now, I thought about this quite a bit. We're trying to work out which way it'll go, and I kind of reverted to type a little bit with some safe inclusions. But I'm going to start with Ederson goal. Obviously, that needs no explanation whatsoever. Kyle Walker, in my opinion, will start right back. And it's the rest of the defence where it gets interesting. I think, given the size of this game, and given the precedent previously, I don't think he'll play Mendy at left back because I think Mendy's not quite the level of fitness yet to play in a game of this size. I think it might be too much for him. Though, having said that, the pitch will be perfect, so physically it could help him. But I think he won't play Mendy at left back. I don't think he'll play Danilo either. I think he'll do what he did against Liverpool and play Laporte at left back with Stones and Otamendi, or Stones and Kompany, but I'm going to say Stones and Otamendi in the middle. I think that's what's going to happen. I think it'll be very much like Liverpool game. I can understand that as well. I think you'll want to kind of cut off, like Son on the left or something like that. And I can kind of understand that if it does happen. That's just my guess. Let me know what you think the defence will be. I thought about Kompany in there instead of Otamendi, but I think Kompany might play at the weekend instead for some reason. Then in midfield, Fernandinho. Makes sense. Gundogan won't play there. It'll be Fernandinho in a game of this importance. Then I can't see past De Bruyne. Obviously, he was given a bit of rest early on the other day, the weekend. And in general, De Bruyne is a guy that steps up against Spurs. He scored plenty of goals against them. He's a killer. In general, he's been talking a lot in the press conference as well before. And De Bruyne is going to play. And even though he's not in great form at the moment, my guess is David Silva is going to play just because Pep trusts him. I'm not saying I want him to play because his form is sketchy these days, unfortunately. But he's going to stay on. I think he's going to start. Guardiola does tend to pick his more senior favourite players, and Silva is one of them. And I think the middle, presuming Aguero doesn't play, I think it kind of picks itself. I think it'll be Bernardo because he always plays. I think Sterling will come back in the left. No Sane, unfortunately. And then I think it'll be Gabriel Jesus. I think Aguero will start his game on the bench. He could play, but I think it's going to be on the bench, which would make sense. I think in general, we should have enough there. That team should be able to be effective in this game. Aguero as an impact sub, Sane as an impact sub. That's pretty nice, isn't it? Let's be honest. And on to Spurs. Well, We don't know which way it's going to go with Spurs because they're an interesting team. In terms of personnel, they're out Eric Dyer, Eric Lamela, Sergio Aurier. So in general, Spurs are missing a few key players there, but they still obviously got plenty of quality throughout that team. The likes of Harrison, the likes of Dele Alli, the likes of Harry Kane, the likes of Son, who's been fantastic this season. They're not a team that you take lightly. And in general, I'm a little bit nervous about this game, more than I would be normally against Spurs, just because obviously it's the Champions League game and it's obviously got a bit more pressure on it. But weirdly though, I'm more worried about the Palace game. I don't know why. It's just maybe because of Palace last season at Selhurst Park. But Spurs, I don't know. I feel like we should be able to control the midfield here, but with Spurs, though, you never know which team you're going to get. Obviously, they won the first game as well against Palace at the new stadium. The new stadium is absolutely beautiful, but I agreed with De Bruyne when he said, we're not scared of this stadium. Why should we be scared of this stadium? He said, like, everybody's got a stadium. It's just another stadium for us. And what he's getting at there, I actually agree with. In general, I don't really see why the stadium should have a massive impact on this game, because essentially, at the end of the day, it's a new stadium. Like, what in general are we expecting to fear from this? I don't really get what we're meant to be scared of about this stadium because it's so new. It's so basically like the cling film's only just been taken off it. That essentially there's no reputation for this stadium. What it is at the moment is a big, shiny, beautiful new house that doesn't really have a sense of place yet. It doesn't really have familiarity. The fans themselves are probably still getting used to it. I no doubt it'll be noisy, but it's noisiness from a place of not intimidation or fear. It's noisiness from a place of, wow, look at this shiny new thing that we're in. The Spurs players themselves, they won't be used to it yet. The Spurs fans won't be used to it yet. I've no doubt that they'll be up for it. But there's also an argument he said that if anything, there's absolutely more pressure on Spurs. Definitely there is, because they've got this shiny new stadium they've been waiting for absolutely ages for. Now imagine if you're a Spurs player and you step out and you see that massive wall. You know the expectation is on them to actually come out and do something, because everyone's saying, oh, it's going to make a difference. Spurs have got more pressure than Manchester City. I honestly don't think City will care. It hasn't built up this intimidating, hostile reputation yet to actually change the game. It's definitely not going to be a game changer, in my humble opinion. If anything, I think there could be more pressure on Spurs to actually go out there and prove that this stadium was worth it. Now, Spurs obviously are a very good team. They've got very much a free hit at this game. Their form in general, apart from the Palace game, has been pretty poor. They lost Liverpool, they lost Southampton, both 2-1. Though they should have got something against Liverpool, as we all know. Lloris, I still have nightmares about that moment. What were you doing, mate? What were you doing? I mean, in general, Spurs, they've been kind of hit and miss. They lost to Burnley, Leicester, Chelsea. Their title challenge essentially just crumbled during the course of a month and a half, and they went peak Spurs. But having said that, they are still Spurs. They are still a team with loads of quality players. My head says we should not fear them, really, because in general, Spurs are very much capable of self-imploding, but at the same time, they are a team. They blew Dortmund away. They beat Dortmund, obviously, in the previous round to get here. Then they did pretty well in a group that wasn't easy. You know, Inter Milan are a good team. PSV, they're a pretty decent team as well. They're not the level they used to be, the old PS teams of old, but in general, Barcelona as well. They did well against Barcelona, so that was not an easy group to come through. And Spurs will probably look at City and go, you know, we have lost our last 3 games against them, but we've got nothing to fear here. We'll go at them and see what can happen. And Spurs would have every right to say that. Having said that, onto my prediction bit, I'm feeling this game could be absolutely crucial. I think Guardiola will be very cautious about this game. He's obviously you feel a little bit of pressure because he's human, and he'll probably admit that himself about this whole quadruple thing. It's really nice, once again, that we can't think about the FA Cup now until after this season, after the Champions League kind of quarters and semis if we get there. It's nice we can't have to think about that for a while now, but there's no doubting that there is a lot of pressure on this game, because Guardiola personally has had a lot of people saying, oh, he's a fraud, he only wins in money and he can't get the Champions League without Messi. So he'll be thinking about this a lot. Now, obviously, last season as well, at this stage, we went out to another English club, which is also a thing. And also, there's a lot of parallels as well, because last year, obviously, it was the whole Anfield thing, and this time it's all about the new stadium for Spurs. So there's a lot of stadiums, and there's an English team, and there's loads of kind of parallels. Having said that, there's no hoodoo here for Manchester City. So I think in general, we have to come out and we have to boss it. Midfield-wise, Spurs, the likes of Sissoko, are a good runner, but he's not going to control the game. City have to go out there and we have to control the game. We have to be really focused. I'm also quite I also quite like if we have a bad game that we get to follow up with a good performance afterwards. And we didn't play that well against Brighton. I'm not saying we were awful, but definitely we weren't the kind of sharp, focused machine we really are. I've got to give Brighton some credit for that. But in general, there's definitely loads of rooms for improvement. And I'm sure Guardiola would have been on the training ground the past couple of days, pointing out where they went wrong against Brighton and what we could do to make sure the performance was upper level against Spurs. And I think now the players will be really focused because of that. So it's kind of like a blessing in disguise, one of those moments where you can reassess and kind of get everything nice and focused. So having said that, I think we are going to win this. That's a very nervy prediction, but I think Manchester City will win this. I think it'll be 2-1. I think Aguero will come off the bench. I don't think he will score. I think we'll control most of the game. I think Spurs will put up a fight, but I think we'll be all right if we can handle that and the 2-1 at our ground. I don't think the ground will be anywhere near as rocking as that was at the Etihad. No, it was the Etihad, it was our ground, but that game was just blood and thunder. I think we can handle this as well. Fingers crossed. That's what I'm going to go for. Anyway, guys, I want to know your predictions as ever. What do you make of the potential lineup that I put out there? How would you start this game with your Guardiola? What kind of 11 would you choose? Also, which way do you see it going? And should City genuinely fear this new stadium? To me, it doesn't seem like it makes any sense because we're fearing something that's just literally formed. You can't fear something you don't know yet, if that makes any sense. Anyway, guys, as ever, I want to say thank you to all these people scrolling down the side of the screen here. Eric Nixon, my latest patron, absolute hero. If you want to shout out, you want to get involved in the Patreon, Q&A, all that kind of stuff. Patreon.com/Esteemed Kompany. If not, just keep watching these videos. Make sure you subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you tomorrow.